The stars shimmered above the sleepy Midwestern town of Granger's Hollow, undisturbed by the soft hum of night insects and the occasional rustle of wind through the tall pines. Beneath this tranquility, however, something unnatural stirred. High above Earth's atmosphere, a vessel unlike any known to man hovered silently, cloaked in electromagnetic refraction fields. Inside, its inhabitants were preparing for what they believed would be a routine biological harvest. Virex Cole, chief xenobiologist of the Selari expedition fleet, adjusted his optical lenses, narrowing his twin irises as he peered at the live readings from Earth. Primitive but promising, the human genome intrigued him. Carbon-based bipedal, emotionally erratic, but physically durable. They had survived ice ages, nuclear scares, and their own warmongering tendencies. That made them, in his mind, perfect for study. And expendable. They are unstable, grunted Traz, a hulking Threnan enforcer station at the helm. Emotionally volatile. Unpredictable. Unpredictable does not mean dangerous. Virex Cole replied smoothly, tapping his claw against a containment module. They possess no planetary defense capable of detecting us. Their energy readings are pre-industrial by our standards. We need their organic samples. Without further ceremony, a thin beam of lavender light descended from the ship, passing unnoticed through cloud cover. It bathed a small patch of forest near the town's outskirts, illuminating deer tracks and fallen pine needles. In moments, 5 human figures shimmered into view inside a containment tube aboard the ship, abducted mid-hike, their eyes wide with paralyzed confusion. Virex Cole moved forward, observing the captives like museum pieces. Begin anatomical dissection. Priority on circulatory analysis. Technicians obeyed, activating restraining fields. A young man, early 20s, dark-haired, lean, was selected first. His name tag, still dangling from his windbreaker, read Eli Carter. The machines adjusted his body into a suspended position. A sterilized probe extended from the ceiling and made a shallow incision along his forearm. Then everything went wrong. The first drop of blood hit the collection dish. A thin wisp of smoke rose. The metal bubbled. The dish shrieked, warping inward like melting plastic. The technician stepped back, startled, but not fast enough. A second droplet, flicked by the twitch of Eli's finger, landed on his forearm. The scream that followed was unlike anything Virex Cole had ever heard in over 600 planetary catalogs. It tore through the sterile air, raw and wet. The technician collapsed, shrieking, his flesh liquefying beneath the protective suit. His limbs convulsed as the blood spread, steam rising in thick, acrid tendrils. Others rushed to assist, only to recoil as their equipment shorted from the corrosive mist. Eli fell to the floor as the restraining field glitched. He landed hard, breathing ragged but conscious. Blood trailed down his arm, each drop sizzling on the cold floor. He stared not at the aliens, but at his own body, then at the smoking crater his blood had burned into the metal. What the hell? Another Selari reached out, voice tight with alarm. Secure the specimen. Do not let him. Too late. Eli scrambled to his feet, adrenaline overriding confusion. He slammed a shoulder into a nearby panel. The alien staggered, his armored skin catching a splash of blood from Eli's arm. Smoke curled instantly. A hiss of pain followed as the alien's arm disintegrated mid-joint, bone and sinew collapsing into slush. Alarms erupted. Virex Cole backed away, his limbs shaking. Containment breach in Lab Theta, barked a computerized voice. Unidentified biochemical hazard detected. Trez burst through the inner door, weapon raised, but paused mid-step. He surveyed the chaos, liquefying bodies, panic, the surviving humans stirring from stasis with terror in their eyes. He'd never seen this before, never smelled this before. It was something alien from them, "Stand down," Virex Cole shouted, but his voice cracked. "Do not let the fluids touch." Too late again. A technician slipped on a fresh smear of blood. Her scream was cut short as she hit the floor, convulsing. Eli looked at his hands, red and shaking. "What did you bastards do to me?" Virex Cole stared, uncomprehending. This wasn't a weapon. No injection, no external tech. This was natural. Unmodified human blood. Acidic, reactive, potent enough to breach Selari alloy and Threnan skin. He backed up slowly, fingers twitching to access his data log. This discovery was catastrophic. "This is not possible," he whispered. "No species can carry internal fluids so reactive and survive." Eli grabbed a jagged shard of metal from a broken panel, still slick with blood. "Guess no one told us we couldn't." He wasn't just surviving, he was fighting, and he wasn't alone. One of the other captives, a woman in her 30s with a gash on her shoulder, pushed herself upright. Her name, according to her trail pass, was Maria Leong. She grabbed a cable from the floor, fashioning a makeshift whip, her eyes locked with Eli's, fierce and unyielding. Virex Cole stepped back into the hallway, sealing the lab doors with a trembling hand. "Quarantine Theta Sector." He ordered into his communicator. "Do not enter without full hazmat shielding. No contact. No retrieval." "What do we tell command?" asked Traz, barely masking his fear. Virex Cole hesitated. For the first time in his centuries of exploration, he felt something foreign curdling inside him. Dread. "We tell them the specimens are hostile and biologically incompatible." The ship trembled slightly as another containment barrier failed, and screams echoed again. Eli stood at the center of it all, blood drying on his skin like war paint. He didn't understand what had happened, not yet, but he knew one thing. They were afraid of him, and fear, he realized, was a weapon far sharper than any blade. The lights above flickered once, then twice, then darkness swallowed the lab. Silence lingered like a held breath in the aftermath of chaos. The lab, once pristine and ordered, now reeked of vaporized metal and charred alien flesh. Virex Cole stood in Observation Chamber 9, watching footage of the incident on a loop. Each frame tightened a knot in his thorax. The human's blood, just blood, had dissolved 3 species-class suits, corrupted 2 atmospheric filters, and rendered 7 technicians unsalvageable. None of it made sense. The analysis team worked without speaking, their digits trembling as they reviewed chemical data. Glarin, the lead biochemist, tapped through sequences of molecular breakdowns, each reading more implausible than the last. "This compound should not exist," he muttered. "Their hemoglobin contains iron, but it reacts with xenoproteins like a refined acid compound. There's no evolutionary pathway for this, not without deliberate engineering." Virex Cole loomed over the console. "Are you suggesting the humans were designed to do this?" Glarin's response was a soft click of his mandibles. "No, I'm suggesting nature designed them in spite of everything we know. Their blood is stable inside their own system. But once exposed to our atmospheres, our biology," he shook his head, "it becomes volatile, lethal." Behind them, the translucent body of Technician Arlock floated in a containment tank, or what was left of him. His limbs had dissolved up to the joints, and the rest of his form was too degraded for a full scan. The forensic crew hadn't even attempted retrieval of his organs. No need. They were liquid before his scream ended. Traz entered without warning, still armored, still too rigid to hide his unease. He motioned for Virex Cole to follow. They've escaped containment. 3 of the humans are missing from the thermal scans. 1 still near the lab, but 2 have slipped into maintenance corridors. "How?" Virex Cole asked, voice brittle. "They use their own blood," Traz replied. burned through the access locks. No one spoke for a long moment. Then Glaren turned, his voice hushed. Do they know what their blood does? They didn't, Virex Cole said slowly. But I think they're learning. Down in the ship's tertiary ventilation system, Eli crawled beside Maria, whispering instructions as they inched along narrow shafts slick with condensation. He cradled his bleeding arm close, not in fear, but caution. He'd seen what his blood had done. It scared him, but it also gave him a strange, feral hope. They're panicking, Maria whispered. We're a threat now. Eli nodded. Let's make sure they stay panicked. He didn't understand the science of it, but survival didn't need science. It needed instinct, and instinct told him this ship was filled with things that feared pain. They used gloves, containment suits, machines for every interaction. They weren't warriors. They weren't ready for creatures who bled acid. Elsewhere, the Selari Council convened via quantum relay. A dozen species blinked in and out of view on shimmering holographic plinths. Their languages filtered through real-time translation nodes. They reviewed the data with increasing horror. This is not mutation, one declared. It is a biological deterrent, an evolutionary defense unlike any we've cataloged. They didn't even weaponize it. Another responded. They walk around with it inside them casually. Do you not see the danger? One delegate leaned forward. And we abducted them, studied them, cut into them. The silence that followed was heavy with implication. Virex Cole watched the council feeds from a secure node, his mandibles twitching as realization crept in. Earth was no longer a curiosity. It was a liability. Worse, it was a mirror, showing them what a truly unpacified species looked like. He flipped back to the footage from the dissection lab. Frame by frame, he examined Eli's face. There had been fear, yes, but after the blood, after the first scream, his eyes had changed. Recognition, power. Down in Sector 12, the humans struck again. A Selari patrol found their own weapons repurposed, drenched in blood, handles barely graspable but effective. 2 enforcers went down in seconds, their armor sizzling under contact. One tried to run. The blood from his fallen comrade soaked into his leg. He collapsed in a cloud of hissing vapor. Maria crouched beside a console, prying at the interface with a sparking tool. Eli stood watch. You think there's a way to send a signal back? She asked. If there is, Eli said, we'll find it. Someone needs to know what happened here. Earth has to be ready. We're just hikers, Eli. Normal people. Not anymore. Back in command, Virex Cole stared at the casualty reports, each more damning than the last. 37 dead, 13 more infected, and awaiting decomposure. Psychological stress metrics off the charts. The humans weren't invading. They weren't equipped. They were improvising and still causing havoc. He initiated a final lockout protocol and opened a line to Central Authority, requesting reevaluation of Earth's classification, recommending immediate containment, possibly preemptive sterilization. The voice that answered was curt. Based on what evidence? Virex Cole uploaded the footage of Arlok's death, then the corridor ambush, the pool of liquefied enforcers. Eli Carter, standing in it, unharmed, the voice returned, quieter. We'll discuss options. As Virex Cole ended the call, the ship's lights flickered again. A system glitch or sabotage. Either way, time was running thin. Somewhere in the lower decks, Eli pressed a blood-slick hand to a reinforced door. Steam hissed from the seam. Metal groaned. He didn't know where it led, but wherever it went, he was going through, and the galaxy was about to learn that humanity was not to be touched. The door hissed open with a reluctant groan, metal curling at the seams where Eli's blood had eaten through the alloy. He stepped cautiously into the chamber beyond, Maria close behind. The room was vast, dark, industrial, lined with stacked equipment and glowing consoles. It pulsed with alien energy, but to Eli, it felt like a nervous heartbeat, erratic and unsure. "This is some kind of command hub," Maria whispered, eyes scanning the unreadable glyphs scrolling across the displays. "Think we can reach Earth from here?" "Only one way to find out," Eli replied, wiping his bloody palm on his already ruined jeans. Maria approached the control panel. It responded to her presence with a low hum, glyphs brightening, shifting language scripts until one settled into rough English. External communications, restricted access. Behind them, a soft hiss. They turned instantly. Two Selari enforcers emerged from the far corridor, sleek weapons raised, armor reflective and unmarred. They were different from the panic patrols earlier. These weren't scientists. These were executioners. Eli didn't hesitate. He flung his arm forward, a wide arc of blood slicing the air. One enforcer flinched, but not fast enough. The droplet spattered across his chest plate. Smoke erupted, followed by the shriek of corroding flesh beneath. The second tried to fire, but Maria was already moving, slamming a metal rod into the weapon's barrel. It backfired with concussive blast, sending the alien sprawling backward into a panel. Eli grabbed the rifle as it skittered across the floor. He checked the charge instinctively, no idea how he knew what to do, but the machine felt familiar, intuitive. "You good?" he asked, already scanning the corridor. Maria gave a shaky nod, her breath ragged. "Still here." He turned back to the panel. "Then let's call home." A few keystrokes, more guesses and knowledge, brought up a crude interface. Static shimmered across the screen, then a soft tone pinged through the air. Signal transmitting. Half a world away, deep within a NORAD satellite relay center, a red light blinked to life. Operators stared confused as alien characters interlaced with English script. "Human prisoners alive. Vessel above Earth. Biological threat." Within minutes, Earth's defense grid responded. Strategic Command went to high alert. The UN scrambled emergency sessions. In a classified hangar in Nevada, a team of operatives prepped for launch aboard a prototype suborbital interceptor, one built for observation, but quietly armed for boarding missions. Among them was Sergeant Mara Jensen, Special Forces, war-hardened and skeptical. "What's the mission brief?" she asked, securing her gear. Her commander handed her a transcript. "Alien vessel. Hostile. Unknown tech. Civilians on board. Possibly alive. Oh, and human blood might melt aliens. Classified biological hazard." She blinked once, then cracked a thin smile. "That's new." In orbit, the Selari ship trembled as a human signal reached Earth. Virex Cole stood at the central viewport, watching the blue planet spin silently beneath them. It was no longer a sphere of curiosity. It was a ticking bomb. He turned to Traz. "Prepare orbital weapons. We cannot risk contamination. If they understand what they are, if they mass-produce this reaction, you want to exterminate an entire species?" Traz asked. Virex Cole stared at him. "Would you hesitate if you knew a species bled acid?" Traz said nothing. Alarms blared before either could act. The ship's long-range sensors detected incoming propulsion. Earth had launched something. Fast, small, aimed directly at them. "Boarding craft," Traz growled. "Primitive design but aggressive velocity. Intercept it." "Shoot it down," Virex Cole ordered. Weapons cycled. Lasers hummed. But just before the firing sequence could lock on, a power failure surged through the ship. Consoles flickered and went dark. Somewhere in the lower levels, a control node had been sabotaged. Eli and Maria ducked behind a bulkhead as sparks sprayed the corridor. "Think that did it?" she asked. Eli nodded, clutching the rifle, long enough for help to arrive. The boarding craft pierced the outer hull minutes later. A brief tremor rocked the ship as human boots hit alien metal. The operatives moved quickly, sweeping corridors with precision. The air inside stank of ozone rot and chemical decay. "Eyes open," Jensen warned. "These aren't bugs, they're scientists. Scared ones. That makes them dangerous." They found Eli and Maria near the data core, bruised, bloodied, but alive. U.S. Special Command, Jensen announced, kneeling beside them. We're getting you home. Eli blinked, dazed. You brought weapons? Jensen nodded. We always bring weapons. He looked down at the red smear drying on his forearm. You won't need them. Her eyes followed his gaze. We heard the stories. Didn't believe half of them. They're not stories, Maria said softly. This is what we are. They didn't know what they took. Outside, the ship lurched again. The Selari crew had regrouped. Fear gave way to desperation. Virex activated internal defenses. Security drones deployed, hovering silently, their limbs crackling with suppressive energy. But the humans didn't cower. They advanced, tactical and ruthless. The drones fell, slashed, shattered, or melted by blood-touch blades. One operative even adapted a weapon to inject human blood into its firing mechanism. The result was catastrophic. Each shot ignited on impact like a plasma burst, dissolving armor and bone alike. Eli watched them move. Efficient, unrelenting. These weren't survivors. They were reapers. And for the first time since his abduction, he felt something close to triumph. Virex observed from a secure deck, shaking. They were never prey, he whispered. They were always predators. We just lacked the eyes to see it. Below him, human boots echoed on steel. His time was running out. And Earth was just beginning to wake up. Virex sealed the chamber doors behind him with finality that echoed through the reinforced alloy. The corridor beyond was chaos. Shrill alarms, flickering emergency lights, the distant thunder pulsed fire, and the shrieks of dying crew. He could not stop what was coming. The humans had become a storm, and this vessel, once a pinnacle of Selari science, was their proving ground. He activated the last failsafe, the data core self-erasure protocol. If nothing else, their research would not fall into human hands. But even as the sequences initiated, doubt gnawed at him, not because the humans had outwitted them. No, that was expected of any adaptive prey. What chilled him was how little effort it had taken. These creatures had not arrived with technology or strategy. They had arrived in ignorance, with nothing but their own physiology, and they had won. Eli led the final push through the command deck. His wounds were wrapped tight, his rifle low, his jaw set. Jensen moved at his flank, eyes sweeping, efficient and cold. Behind them, Maria hacked open the final bulkhead, her fingers flying over unfamiliar keys with the grace of desperation turned into fluency. They entered the command center, finding Virex framed by cascading streams of holographic data. He turned slowly, tall and regal even now, the bones of his face lit in failing blue light. You were never meant to be this, he said, voice flat. You were supposed to be simple, fragile, contained. Eli raised his weapon. You thought wrong. Virex didn't flinch. We cataloged 10,000 species, studied evolution across star systems. We saw life in every form, but never this. Never a species whose very blood is a weapon. It's not right. It's an aberration. Maria stepped forward, face lined with grime and fury. No, it's survival. He regarded her for a long moment. You don't understand what this means. To us, you're not just dangerous, you're contagious. The knowledge of you alone could disrupt galactic order. Jensen stepped beside Eli, lowering her rifle slightly. Then maybe it deserves to be disrupted. Outside the viewport, Earth loomed, enormous and quiet. No ships in orbit, no fleets of retaliation. Just a single world, unaware of the fear it had begun to inspire. Eli's gaze stayed on Virex. You didn't come in peace. You came in arrogance, thought we were insects, thought your science gave you dominion. But you never asked yourself why a planet that breeds predators like us never needed to join a galactic community. Because you weren't ready. No, Eli said, because maybe we were too much from the start. Virex hesitated. Then, without warning, he lunged to the console. His hand struck a final override key, emergency venting protocol. Red lights screamed to life. The chamber began to decompress. Jensen moved instantly, slamming a magnetic bolt into the floor to hold them steady. Maria locked the nearest pressure panel, cutting the emergency sequence short. But the damage had begun. Oxygen dropped, the walls howled. Virex Cole collapsed, the sudden vacuum rupturing his internal organs before he could complete his escape. Eli pulled Maria close, steadying her as the vents sealed again. Silence followed, a long, eerie silence that made the breathing in their masks feel thunderous. Then the door opened behind them. More soldiers, human, armored, alert, flooded into the chamber. A medtech checked Maria's vitals. Another handed Eli a communicator. "Command wants a sitrep," the operative said. Eli held the device, then looked around the ruined bridge, the burnt bodies, the corroded panels, the quiet planet below. His voice was hoarse. Alien ship neutralized. 2 civilians recovered. 1 hostile species encountered and contained. And he paused, searching for words that fit the impossible truth. "We learned something about ourselves." The line crackled. "Clarify." Eli glanced at Maria, then at the bloodstains still etched in the steel near the bulkhead. "We're not the bottom of the food chain." The voice paused. "Copy that." Cleanup teams arrived hours later, neutralizing residual biotoxins, securing the corpse of Virex Cole for later examination. The ship, scarred and mangled, was towed into lunar orbit for study. Every surviving data fragment was encrypted, filtered, then locked behind levels of clearance few humans would ever see. Earth didn't celebrate. There were no parades, only whispers. The reports leaked slowly, in fragments. Strange readings, alien tech, wild rumors of human physiology turning the tables. Scientists demanded proof. Governments denied. The truth waited in classified vaults. But among the military, one phrase echoed again and again. They bleed acid. No one needed more context. It meant something now. Maria and Eli were debriefed, examined, then discharged under oath and threat. But what they had seen, what they had done, didn't leave them. Every time Eli looked at his own arm, he remembered the sound of armor sizzling. Every time Maria passed a medical lab, she remembered Arlok screams. They didn't return to normal, because normal didn't exist anymore. Back on Earth, research began. Quietly, carefully, samples were taken, ethics debated, security ramped up, and somewhere, far beyond Sol, a dozen star empires received a signal, a warning. Do not approach Earth. Do not provoke humans. Do not touch their blood, because now the galaxy knew. Humanity bled war.